Well, actually, she started life in a song. Many, many years ago, I was writing a song about witches, and I had to come up with all sorts of silly names to put into the chorus. It was a song about a witch's photograph, and Pongwiffy was one of the names, and I really liked the name, and I thought I'd quite like to write a little story about this character. That's how it started. Always been scared of them. They were, I loved stories about fantasy and magic and stuff when I was a kid. So I was always drawn to that kind of thing, but I did get quite scared. One of my worst nightmares was seeing Snow White when the wicked queen turns into the scary old witch. That was horrible. So I thought it would be nice to sort of write some funny witches for a change rather than scary ones. Well, it sort of grew like Topsy, really, because it started off with just Pongwiffy and her best friend Sharkadder having a bit of a row. And then the Goblins sort of started playing up next door. And then other things began to happen. And then Pongwiffy had to get herself a familiar to help her with her spells. So she advertised for hamster Hugo. And so gradually all the characters started growing and sort of falling in and coming as the story changed. And now I've got a cast of thousands because there are an awful lot of minor characters that still like to poke their noses into the later books. Perhaps a bar of soap with instructions. Or I tell you what would be really helpful if she got something like a BlackBerry or a Palm Pilot, because she's very disorganized and she's always got a million things to do and is always making a million lists and a million places to be. But I'm not sure that she could cope with the technology. But it would be a good idea. Not essentially, I don't think. I think she's still very much the same, but I think she's a bit more ambitious. You know, her plans get bigger and wackier and more silly, and they're still prone to disaster. She never learns, but she's always enthusiastic. That's the main thing about her. Always ready to move on to the next big scheme. Wouldn't like to know anybody in real life Pongwiffy. Like, oh, dearie me. She's probably a bit overbearing like me, a bit sort of in your face and always very keen to move on to the next project. We're alike in that way, and my office is often a tip. I wouldn't want to be Pongwiffy at all, and I wouldn't want to be any of the witches, and I certainly wouldn't want to be a familiar because they're the dog's bodies. They do all the horrible jobs. I think if I could be in the world of Pongwiffy, I would like to be Arthur the piano-playing dragon, because I'd be in the Witchway with them boys. We'd sit at the side, provide the music and the soundtrack, and watch the action, and everybody else gets into trouble, perhaps not us. It is a bit of a chaotic world. I'm hoping that Pongwiffy remains fitter as a result of organising the Witchway Wood Olympics, which weren't everything that she'd hoped that they would be, but they did sort of get her onto the right track. I think she'll slip, because everybody does if they deprive themselves of all their favourite things. But I hope when she next has skunk stew that she manages to have some greens with it and a bit of fruit maybe, and keeps up that sort of walking around rather than slumping eating sweets in front of the television, which is what she started off life doing. Do you know, she hasn't told me yet. I think she's keeping it very close up her sleeve, but I'm sure that she's thinking of the next big plan, and when she is, I'm ready to write it down. This is me in my hat, which somebody gave me and I keep in my office, but I don't wear it on the bus. And This is Dead-Eyed Dudley. He's a horrible piratical cat that belongs to Sharkadder, Pongwiffy's best friend. I don't have a hamster.